A couple of weeks back, we built the New Mexico-inspired city of Heisenberg, complete with a few Breaking Bad references, and I had initially thought for this project to just be a single standalone fun build, but I was quite surprised by the amount of positive feedback, especially from people living in New Mexico and Breaking Bad fans as well. So I figured due to popular demand, we're gonna give it another spin. So today we're going to massively expand upon Heisenberg, and we're gonna get some of those quintessential southern US themed stuff in here. So we're gonna continue having tons of parking lots and empty spaces in our downtown, add in a few high rises as well. I'm thinking we're gonna grab, you know, a 4-lane interstate and kind of ram it through the city somewhere, destroying an old neighborhood. And I'm thinking that we can even create like a true ghetto between the train tracks and the interstate, depending on where I choose to ram the asphalt through. But in general, it should be a pretty fun build. We'll also get some big suburban sprawl going because, you know, medium density, we don't do that here. So we're going to take a bit of inspiration from Albuquerque, New Mexico today, the city where most of Breaking Bad takes place. And as we kind of take a little tour of downtown here, it's pretty much an urban hillscape, at least by modern urban planning standards. We've got more surface area dedicated to parking than actual developments, and it creates this really interesting look where you've got like high rises or medium rises kind of poke through some of these blocks, and then they're kind of intercepted by tons of parking and just open spaces that aren't actually utilized all that well. And we've only got a few skyscrapers in here, so it's of course gonna be challenging to replicate this. So I'd say we'll just take all the inspiration we can and create like a miniature version of this downtown. The lack of assets is also going to be a real challenge, so we're going to have to get creative and we're just going to take it slow and see how far we can get. But generally, this is sort of the look I'm going for the downtown, especially the area here. Tons of parking, open plazas that no one is ever going to use because you don't have any reason to be here unless you're working. Yeah, stuff like that. It's going to be interesting. Now, as for inspiration for the interstate cutting through the city, we could pick anywhere in the US almost, but we're still in Albuquerque because why not? Seems that during the 50s and 60s, the favorite pastime hobbies for Americans was, you know, football, barbecue, and ramming interstate through established neighborhoods. So we're gonna do the same today. Okay, so where do we actually begin? Well, I might regret this decision later, but I think normally I'd begin with the infrastructure changes, get that in place first. So that's gonna be the interstate revamp, maybe some more rail yard stuff. But I think this time around, I'd like to start expanding the actual city footprint at first and revamping the downtown. And then as we start to let all that grow, we can, you know, start doing these destructive infrastructure projects afterwards. So the first step is just going to be an expansion of the existing street layout of Heisenberg, because I think the overall start we've got here is all right. It's fine for our needs. I'm going to relocate the elementary school as one of the first things though. Just bring it down here alongside Ivy Street as a start, because we might have a park here or something else. The only thing I know is that we're not gonna have an elementary school here. We've got Ivy Street here as a 2-laner, but it's probably it's gonna be the main road that just continues endlessly through the desert here, and has the, I guess, most build-up environment alongside downtown. So I'm going to delete this parking lot, and then we'll upgrade it to a... Are we really going for a 6-lane divided? We could do that. That's quite the change, but why not? I mean, we need, for this whole thing to work, we need roads to really feel significant, strokes rather. They need to be wide, imposing, and something you don't want to interact with while on foot, and especially not if you're on a bike. So a 6-laner is probably a good start actually. And then what we might do is add in another 4-laner, maybe Prospect Street is a good bet for an upgrade here. We'll go for a 4-lane divided as well. Just gonna cut through here, and then we can terminate. We can terminate down here. We're gonna have to revamp and expand on this area anyways. But I think this is a good start. We've already started moving established citizens out of this area due to some imminent domain infrastructure expansions. So I think we're on a good track already. And in the first episode, we used Kent Street to kind of taper off downtown, adding a bit of a curved or an off angle here rather. But since downtown is going to continue for a little while, we'll just remove that street altogether and then maybe just connect alongside this street instead. Make sure we've got that connection intact up here. And then we're just gonna grab this road here and continue that. And then we'll just fill in the space here with a crossroad as well, I think. And moving up. There you go. Some more carving to do. And then we're gonna have to dezone some of these pretty nice residential suburbs we've established in here. I think we're just gonna turn this into like a boring park of something. But I'll be dezoning much of the residential here to kind of give us a clean slate and a bit more restrictive zoning policy for much of the city. So probably I've just removed a segment of King Street here because I had to adjust some terrain stuff. We're just gonna get that fixed, of course. There we go. But generally I want to kind of reserve a few city blocks to pretty much not have any residential at all and have that really strict old school American zoning in place. I know today most places in the US employ a more, don't know if you'd call it a progressive type of zoning, but it seems that in Albuquerque at least the zoning is super strict around the downtown and you have very, very little residential mixed in. There are a few more modern like 4 or 5 story apartment buildings, but there's very little of that. And speaking of quintessential American things, I'd like a downtown stadium in this vicinity here. So I think I'm just gonna remove these roads for now, do a bit of cheaty terraforming, pretty much just smoothing out the area a bit. And then I'm gonna draw the roads back because for the stadium, we really want the area to be pretty flat. It's just gonna cause the least amount of headache for us. And then I'm gonna use a new technique I learned to place the stadium. Because the existing stadiums in the game, let's see, large sports park, the American football field is tiny. I mean, why is this called large sports parks? And then you've got this. I would argue most high schools probably have a more substantial football stadium in the US. And speaking of the high school, this is where the trick comes into play. I learned this from Sully's recent video, which should be no surprise by now. But the thing is, we've got the high school sports fields, but you can't actually rotate it. If you right click, then it just disappears. That's been an issue up until now. And okay, now it's actually perfectly aligned for us, so I guess the trick wasn't needed. But if it weren't, then what you could do is you grab the high school at first, then you align it the way you want, then you hit escape, and then you grab the addition you want to build, and that leaves us to the stadium here. So let's just get that aligned somewhere around here, and of course we're gonna need tons of parking, don't worry about it, but I think for now we're just gonna place it. And while this also acts as a track and field stadium, then generally the asset is just much more substantial, and as we zoom out, the footprint it feels more realistic for a football stadium in relation to the downtown core and the rest of the city. For the stadium, let's start with some real simple parking for now, and then we can revisit it if the need is there. But first I'm just gonna terraform this out. Let's get some of this zoning out of the way. We'll remove this street as well, just to ensure that it's flat. We have a ton of parking to place, so we really just want it to be flat. And let's just see, using some vanilla parking instead of the dev mode is probably where I want to approach this. We're gonna grab our 2-lane road here and run that through again. Like this. Then we're gonna move in, grab this big parking lot here and just get that aligned. Something like this. And then I guess ideally we could have an additional set at the very same size at least. So I'm just gonna check if we can manually align it and if that's gonna work the way we want. Maybe we'll do one that's a bit smaller here, and then we can expand the textures from the actual stadium around here. Anyways, let's see. We'll of course need to soften the terrain out here a bit and just get this softened out so that we can get the avenue here to wrap around. I'm gonna grab that and then I'm going to align that alongside this stretch of parking here. Drag the road through. Yeah. Oh boy. Just remove that and see if we can squeeze in a small road instead without any clipping issues, and we could. So I think that's fine. So we've got a road moving up here, swinging by the entrance. Something like this. Bit of an interesting layout. So I think that covers our stadium parking for now, at least, keeping it relatively simple. We need to start mapping out some road layouts for some suburbs because we're of course bleeding population. I think I'm just gonna pause the game and then we're gonna continue our road layout expansion so that we can actually make sure we have some people living here. And we'll just let this go straight for a long stretch. And yeah, it's gonna be mostly a pretty simple grid pattern. I mean, it's probably the way to go with a build such as this. We might have a 4-lane avenue kind of anchor off out here, where we've got connection to this small interstate that connects to the farming area. But otherwise, we're gonna really just use these 2-lane roads everywhere. And we're gonna move the school again, I think, to a bit of a quieter street. Aspen Street down here. And then you guys probably know by now that I like to just add in a few random small alleys here and there just to break up the monotony, because it does get pretty basic looking if the whole thing is just one well-coordinated grid with 2-lane roads. I mean, it's pretty realistic for many US cities, but it does get a little boring. And I don't mind the empty areas between these blocks. I don't mind that they're not completely perfect as far as zoning optimization goes. This is the southern United States, and you know, space isn't at a premium, so we can certainly afford to pretty much just leave some empty space where we've got a few trees or bushes or whatever in nestled in. Oh, and I just realized that there's perfect space for a small plaza in here. I could act like I had that planned out, but I'm not that smart, so... And we're just about ready to start working on the new downtown. Before that though, I want to get some low density zoning in place first. And I'm just gonna use the key tool here to align the zoning the way I want. And I want zoning to face the horizontal streets here and not the vertical ones. So I'm just going through here and making sure that I can make that happen. At least in some places I can, not everywhere, but wherever I can, I am going to try and achieve just that. All right, and we'll grab our free form here, and I'll zone something like this. Then I can ensure that we don't get some tiny houses there in the corner. Or at least I can ensure that as much as possible. And we'll actually get a row housing behind the school as well. There's quite an elevation difference here, but I'm guessing we can cover that up with trees, get it all fixed. Maybe we'll have a small park here. It's a bit of an awkward space. So we'll just move on with the zoning. And that should help provide a bit of people to our dying city. All right, let's give downtown our first attempt. And I think I'm actually just gonna start adding in a ton of parking lots. Because that's going to kind of break up the possibilities for zoning we have. So it's going to be easier to zone because we'll have some, you know, natural limitations. Not very natural, there are parking lots, but I think you get what I mean, right? So I'm gonna go ham with the parking lots here to achieve the look we want. And hopefully it's gonna look pretty cool when we actually get to develop this area here. Do we have enough parking? Do we? No. No, we don't. There's... Oh, yeah. The angles here are... It's quite steep here, so maybe placing this more centered on the block is a little better. But there is a bit of unevenness because this entire area isn't completely flat. That would make it easier, but I don't want to nuke the whole thing just to make it flat. So yeah, anyways, more parking, right? I think we're gonna keep this as sort of like a small park area of some form. And then let's just get in some parking up here as well. Right near the train tracks, of course. Lots and lots of parking, and we can extend some parking out here because we are going to have some low density commercial stuff out here as well. It's not gonna dominate as much, it's gonna taper off a bit, but we do want some out here. That's not gonna work. Do like that instead. And let's just make sure that it's as smooth as can be to not make it needlessly difficult for us. Okay, so we've got some parking in place now. And now we're gonna move in with some commercial zoning. And I think I'm going to zone high density first, wherever I would want larger buildings, buildings with bigger footprints. And I really don't wanna, you know, overdo this. I wanna kind of sprinkle it here and there, not do too much. So whenever I have a zone that kind of breaks up like this, I'm just gonna delete the other version of it. We'll add some in here as well. And hopefully I have enough residential demand to get like at least a couple of the type of high rises we can get from this type of zoning. But I have my doubts. Okay. Well, we've got a couple of bigger buildings growing at least. And then something else we'll get in place here as well is some warehouse manufacturing lots. These have, I assume they have lower levels of pollution because they don't have, you know, chimneys on top. But the main thing for us is like the aesthetics that they represent. Often you will find some light industrial units mixed in between your commercial assets in certain parts of some American downtowns at least. So that's basically just what we're trying to mimic here. And we'll see. I haven't actually done this mix up before in City Skylines 2, so it's gonna be interesting to see how that actually looks. But it's always just fun to try out some things. And I also have to keep in mind that I won't mind some empty spaces in downtown as well. Spaces that aren't utilized for anything and probably used to house some form of development but don't house anything anymore. I need to make space for that as well by simply not developing it, of course. But let's just see how this looks. Now we've dropped a few warehouse type units throughout, and That looks pretty good. I tried to have a bit fewer over here and a bit more in this end as we kind of reach the edge of downtown. But I think it's already obvious that we're not gonna see the type of development we want if we don't get on with some residential zoning and get more people to simply move in. That's gonna be like the main barrier to actually create the downtown we want currently. So I'm going to have to just continue zoning. Fortunately, these areas turned out pretty much exactly how I wanted it, with some lots that aren't too small, basically. But yeah, it's gonna require much more in terms of a road layout and zoning. So we're gonna jump into that. Okay, so things are definitely still looking a bit rough, but it has helped our demand quite a bit, getting the population numbers growing again. I'm gonna see if there are some signature buildings that make sense to place in here in downtown. This is a place where you would often have signature buildings in place, and even you know, a deprecated downtown would probably have some more old buildings, historic buildings from you know, better times. Maybe it's one way to put it. Can we align this on this angle here? I think we can. I'm gonna steal a bit of the parking space. Let's just move this around and manually place it very, very close to the street then. Something like this. Perfect. So that's an example of a building we'd want. The square center as well. This is maybe here near the stadium actually, and I'm gonna align it close to Aspen Street because there is a bit of terrain differences here. I think this is fine. We've got our massive gas station here, which is also a really cool building. I think if we place it here, we can probably stitch it up with some of the parking from the stadium using the textures. We've got the food station, also a pretty good low density inner city downtown option. Let's see, we just need to find the right location, of course, but we've got is there too much elevation differences here? We'll find out, I guess. And then I'm gonna come in with some trees and cover up some imperfections, of course, but let's try and place it here. No, I think that works quite all right. Let's move to some European stuff. Activity Plaza. This one's a bit of a fancy one, but I think we can make room for that in our city as well. Maybe as, you know, pretty much... I think I want a high rise here actually. No, wait, we'll place it here. We'll place it here, yeah. I'm gonna move it back from the street a bit. Like this. And the auto center. Doing a massive car shop in downtown. I mean, sure. Why not? Maybe, or maybe on the outskirts of downtown, given that it's a pretty massive building. So let's just move that a bit away from the road as well. And destroy these houses. Goodbye. That's a sweet looking asset. I really get the chance to use some of these cool assets now. We've got this marketplace. It's pretty funny this is in the European, because it really looks like something that would fit into an American type strip mall, and we might use this somewhere, but we really can't use it within these blocks here. The slope is just too dramatic. So we're gonna have to wait with that at least. Muscle Garage will have to go in some other area as well. Fashion Square. We might use that. Let's go for some mixed use, which realistically there's probably gonna be very little of in our downtown, but might have a bit. This is an old sort of historic looking building as well, which I guess we could place somewhere close to this one. Let's see, all the way out here maybe. And then close to the road. Yoink. And there was this building as well, which I want to use. Maybe here near the stadium as part of a recent redevelopment in the former stadium district, or the current stadium district. I think that works. And look just how hostile the facade is here. No shops, nothing, just the wall. Pretty realistic. And as far as other tall buildings go, then I think for starters these high-density commercial buildings are actually gonna be my best bet, because the office skyscrapers are they're just very, very tall. Even the level 1s, and if I want the short ones, then the footprint is just very small. They're like super small, slender towers, and I don't really want that. So I think some of these buildings here might actually sort of be my best bet. Although, annoyingly, they of course have all these signs and whatnot on them, which I'm not a huge fan of, but maybe we can use some developer mode trickery to actually remove it. I think I'm gonna give that a try at least. But for now, we're just gonna get these placed down, and then we'll see what we can actually do with them. And they just kind of have the height level that I want. At least for now, I don't want super tall buildings here in downtown. There aren't any in Albuquerque, sorry, either. So I kind of want to follow that trend. But we've got a couple placed down now at least, and I think this is actually almost making our downtown a little too dense. So I'm going to try and remove some of these annoying signs from these buildings. And I picked up this trick from Sully as well. So basically, if we select a building, jump into simulation and enable the debug toggle, let's go with this building as an example. Enable debug toggle, then if we go into UI bindings and action section, we can delete certain elements. The sign here, the sign down here, for instance, and that's already a big improvement if you ask me. Let's see this building here. I don't want these weird signs on the side, because these buildings are more, they're kind of office buildings to me. But since they're commercial buildings, they get plastered with all these weird signs, which is just a weird development decision. I don't know, the commercial, high-density commercial buildings don't look like this in many places. Maybe in Japan, they're good with, signs or a Times Square, but generally speaking, it doesn't really look like this. So, but it's pretty cool that we can move through and delete these signs one by one. It does take a bit of time, but I'm hopeful that the effect at the very end is going to be worth it. At least I think this building now is, it's pretty much just looks like an office building, but it just has a more interesting shape and it's not super tall, so it's perfect for what I want. Alright, I went through all the buildings. I've kept a few street level signs at some of the buildings. I guess it's fair that we have a cafe or two at street level, but overall I think this looks much better, and these buildings, they pretty much go as office buildings now. And I also think we've got a proper mid-rise skyline now, which I think is very nice. I don't really like that we can go for a low-rise or a high-rise because we don't have other zoning options, but I guess we can kind of create it for ourselves. So we're gonna have to expand with some more residential. What I'm gonna do beforehand though is just move in and zone the whole thing up with low-density commercial. Then we're gonna let that grow and then revisit it and see if we've got too much development going on out here, or if it's fine for the type of look we want. Now I just need this to kind of fill in, and then we'll see how it actually all looks. And I think we're of course also going to go for some residential development alongside the main avenue here. Sheffield Street, as it's called by now. Oh, that's interesting. But I think this is fine. We'll switch to residential for now. So as a little recap of what we've got so far, downtown is starting to take shape pretty nicely, and I've sort of achieved somewhat the look I kind of wanted, where we've got these big blocks of land here where you have some like mid-rise and even a high-rise, but then much of the remaining area of the block is either very low density or, you know, just surface parking basically. So I think that as far as, you know, the constraints of City Skylines 2, then this is one of the more unique downtowns I've created so far, just due to how much of an urban hellscape it really is. I mean, the amount of surface parking down here is just insane, but I think it's pretty realistic. As we move a bit further out, these suburbs were created very, very quickly. They're really not the main emphasis of what I'm trying to achieve here, but I am gonna move through and make some of it look a little more nice and a little more detailed. But I think the next project we're gonna initiate is the interstate that is going to cut through this neighborhood here and create the perfect storm for this area here to turn into, you know, a real rough low-income area. Because I'm ramming the interstate through, so you've got a loud interstate on one side, you've got lots of freight rail traffic on the other side, and then next to the freight rail you've got this downtown, which, you know, by 6 in the evening is completely dead, and is completely dead on the weekends as well. So not a great location. So my thinking is that our highway project is gonna start all the way out here, as this isn't actually gonna be the main highway of our region. I'm going to build a different one and then delete this one. And I have a feeling that when I build highways and I pause the game, then when I unpause after a lot of highway construction, my game is more crash prone, my save is more corrupt prone basically, which is not something I would want. So this time around I am just gonna let the game run while I build a highway next to this one. So we're of course just gonna use the parallel tool because it's so easy to work with. And then around here, I think we're gonna turn north Yes, this is what we'll do, and I'll probably have to just pause the game now, and hopefully it doesn't cause any issues. And then when we move closer into the city, I'm going to lower the distance between the two segments of highway, but for now this is just fine. Just gonna do like this, and then I think it's fine that we have an offshoot from the highway into the actual city. Oops, I'm just gonna disable parallel mode here, and then we're gonna bring that down here, and then we can create our interchange. The highway will have to go above the train tracks though. That's something that it doesn't get eminent domain over, because the train tracks were here first. And I may have to anarchy my move across here. And then the question is for how long it should be elevated. Maybe just for a segment out here in the more, wealthy suburbs. So we're just gonna start with this, and then we can always adjust. I'm just checking we don't have pillar issues. We do. But maybe, just maybe, we can fix that. Yes, by just upgrading a segment. So that's perfect, and now we've got a good place here to create an interchange. So let's get cracking. One of the absolute highlights of this game for sure. Just get a few of these segments in place, then we'll just upgrade. Let's see, I think this should be fine. And then a simple ramp. Can I align it perfectly? Well, close enough. There we go. And we'll of course need to move in from the other side as well. Just want to create a new node somewhere around here. Downgrade this stretch again, and then I'll branch off from here. Seven and a half will probably do. And then let's see if the angle is gonna become too tight here. It's not too bad. Whoa, sorry. Can we actually get like a pillar in here somewhere? Probably not. But maybe this is fine. We've got some good engineers out there, right? Cool, and we will need to get a connection in here as well, of course. And this one should be, the first one here is of course a fairly simple one, as it's just connecting to this lane here. A bit of clipping here, no idea why, but we're gonna do that again then. And it's sort of cleaned it out, but doesn't look awesome, but I think it will do for now. And then of course we need the other way around as well. So we'll have to upgrade, and we'll have to upgrade some of these elevated segments actually. This one and perhaps this one as well, and then maybe we'll go beneath here. We've got some trucks here, so that's a pretty good way of us to just kind of estimate how low we need to go. I think something like this is probably fine. Turn this into a bridge segment, and maybe just the whole thing actually. And then we'll just flatten all of this. We'll make sure we've got a bit of alignment here, and then it needs to go all the way up here, so that's gonna be a bit of an interesting connection. Let's branch out, move underneath, and get our connection in place here. And then we should be able to smoothen out the terrain here. And let's have a look. That looks pretty cool. So we'll continue the interstate, not as an elevated segment though. We are going to lower it. And we'll also be drastically reducing the distance to, I guess, let's see, we'll do 1 meter or whatever this unit is in between. But I'm just gonna drag it out. Well, yeah, that's not what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna drag it out with a curve, and then we're gonna adjust the height here. So let's see, we are at 8.5 if I recall, and we'll go 80, and then we'll just make a really long segment here and lower it to thereabouts. And then of course we're going to delete these segments here and then just make a connection here. So we'll just remove the parallel tool, find the point of snapping, which is around here it seems, and just get the connection. I think, let's just see, that looks just how I intended it to look. And then we're gonna remove this because we'll be cutting straight through here. Should probably flatten the terrain a bit. We'll just continue this road as a bridge. So let's see. And then I wanna start going down just a bit. And then here's the tricky part. Well, it's not that tricky. I just need to run the highway straight through this entire area. Something like this. I mean, I could use Anarchy and then just do something like this, and then we'll go to let's see. Okay, let's see how we do this. So I want this to be as authentic as possible, so we'll just cut straight through to about here, and then we're gonna make sure that we elevate a bit. Let's see, we need to get in close here. Something like this, and then we need to move down to ground level again, of course. And then we'll just continue to stretch for this. Let's see. So, we certainly rigged this up. And what I was thinking was that for some of the roads, then just deleting the small segments that kind of attach to the highway might make it a little easier for us to make it really look authentic, how the highway has kind of cut up. There is existing the existing road network the road network. So I'm just gonna be adding some tiny nodes so that I can remove these segments here that are really close. And yeah, the zoning is a bit of a mess here. Let me just dezone a lot of the stuff we've got around here. Oh, that's probably a little too much, but... And safe to say that this decision really tore up this neighborhood. It just absolutely wrecked it, and we'll probably have to delete even more to get more space for the interstate. But the first thing we're gonna do is we need Bedford Street to actually connect through here. I imagine, so I think we're gonna have to lower a few additional segments. So let's see if we can maybe just grab some contour lines from down here. And then hopefully this should be sufficient to lower Bedford Street. Let's see how deep that is. I think we can even go just a bit higher. Yeah, something like this. And grab our slope tool, reduce the size. And let's try a connection. like this, and then we'll of course need to connect our highway network back up. Is it gonna be this easy? I've got my doubts. It was actually that easy. Let's just get this out of the way. And we've got a power line in the middle of the road here, but yeah, pretty good actually. That was easier than I had hoped. It's a bit of a steep decline on Bedford Street, but it does create the connection we want, and we can create some pretty easy on and off ramps as well here, hopefully at least. So that's the next one. So I imagine we are gonna need quite a bit of space for our ramps. I'm just deleting a bit more in the name of progress, of course. Let's move down here. That's probably not far enough, and that's probably too far. So somewhere in between here, let's get in an additional node around here, and then we can upgrade yank and yank. And then usually for me it's easier to drag the actual ramps from the street it's meant to connect to. So what I mean by that is dragging from down here. We'll see how this actually, yeah, that's not gonna work. So I guess I need a bit of extra distance here. And we'll do the same from this direction. Yeah, that's too sharp. So it's a bit finicky. But I am hopeful this turns out sort of alright. We've got a tiny texture glitch here. And we're not gonna be able to key our way out of it. So maybe we can upgrade our way out of it. We can. So we'll just go as close as we can before it appears. It's around here. And I think that's fine. It's not perfect, but it's all right. We'll do the same over here. There you go. And we've got some simple ramps now. And I think we'll add an additional ramp here just because it's gonna look complex and cool. Hopefully cool as well. Which is the most important aspect, of course. That it looks cool. So we'll just create our slip lane here, and let's see, we'll have to do a bit of elevation. Maybe we can start back here actually. That works a little better. Let's see if we can upgrade this segment to a 2-laner. Yes, and probably upgrade this segment here to the 4-lane segment here, have that continue for a bit. And then we can upgrade this segment to a 5-lane asymmetrical leading into town. Like so, given that we've got quite a bit of traffic maybe pushing onto this street to enter downtown. And I'll just be adding some small cul-de-sacs to these roads. I'm gonna go for a different technique than using the roundabouts. Instead, we're just gonna use these small segments of avenue, because then we can also sort of like, we can angle the cul-de-sacs ever so slightly, if that makes sense. We'll add one here as well. We can also add these cul-de-sacs then without removing existing houses. I say that, but then of course I break up the zoning there, but oh well. Same. Oh, that actually survived. And I think that looks pretty good. I mean, it looks pretty terrible, right? Because the amount of destruction this caused to this neighborhood is just pretty unfathomable. So we're just gonna rebuild a segment or two here. Make this look a little nicer. Because the area over here on this side of the highway is actually quite alright. That's not meant to be like a bad place or anything like that. It's the area just north of the interstate that we're gonna turn into a proper bad low-income area. So let's just populate this. Actually, we're gonna keep this segment free here because it's kind of transitioning to the rural zone. But this area here, which currently looks alright, even though the placement is of course pretty bad, we are gonna turn this into a really bad area. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just dezone the whole thing, representing just how much urban decay the implementation of the interstate actually caused here. Many people saw their property prices just plummet completely. We're gonna do the same down here, I think. And we're gonna do the same over here as well. Just get all these houses out so that we can create our own dystopian little suburb. So to achieve this, we need lots of empty lots. Then we need some pretty derelict looking houses. So let's see, North American, Resi, Low, 01, Level 1, Ploppable. And that pretty much gives us a good selection of low density level 1 homes. And I guess, you know, in theory, we could also pick some of the higher level houses because they might have been nice houses before this area got hit with, you know, bad times. But just to kind of get the full effect, I think we're just gonna go for these level 1s. And it's not like they look bad, you know, you don't really have terrible looking houses in this game. So but we're gonna do what we can with a bit of trash and some other props to kind of create the effect we want, and you know, hopefully that's just sort of believable. Now it's just getting some of these placed, of course. Just placing these down. We might add like a gas station or something here as well. That will probably be pretty fitting. But for now, just getting the houses in place. Is that too? It's still a bit too few, I think. We don't want the place to be like completely abandoned. Okay, I think this is actually fine. Let's see. Could we just grab that gas station while we're at it? So we could do we have a 6x5 or something? No, but we've got a 4x6. Which is almost as good. There you go. Now I'm gonna move in and remove the grass from all of these houses here. Which is just gonna take a second or two. And while I don't want to like edit every single building and remove all the props at all, then I'm like, if you've got a pool, then that's probably pushing it for what I'm trying to achieve here at least. So we're just gonna delete the couple of pools we can find here. Something like this is probably gonna be fine. You could delete all the landscaping and, you know, the bushes and all that stuff as well, but that's just gonna take too long. So that's not what I'm looking for here. But pretty much the first step is done. Now we need to kind of simulate some empty lots, and we're gonna use some textures for that. So I'll just be adding this texture throughout this area here and seeing how that actually looks. Hopefully we can sort of mimic some empty lots that have been like cleaned out recently, but hasn't just been completely swallowed by the desert just yet. So it's trial and error thing. Just trying some things out here and gonna see if that works. We'll see how it looks in the end. I can spam some trash props and whatnot as well, and hopefully that's gonna sell the whole thing more than just utilizing the textures here. But I mean, I hope it's a start to use the textures here. They do add a bit more personality, at least, to an area than just having the sandy stuff here. Yes, it does kind of look a bit weird, but also interesting enough for me to actually keep it. Now let's add in all the trash, and hopefully we can actually, yeah, we can get some... we could just paint it. Can we? Yeah, we can actually just paint it. That's, yeah, it's a bit random. But okay, I'm gonna move in with some Anarchy to just manually place it as well. Maybe into the small swimming pool this dude has. But pretty cool that, yeah, we can just use the brush to paint with trash if we really want to make it bad. But that's maybe just a bit too much. So I'll just add them here and there, and then I'm hopeful that I can find a car rig of some sort. Let's see. A junk car. Now we're talking. And I'm gonna add too many of these. So it's gonna be a bit try hard making this a bad area, but you know, I feel I kinda have to go a bit ham here just to try and make this area a bit more unique. We don't really have a lot of options in City Skylines 2, but yeah, there you have it. In fact, why don't we name this nice area? I've got at least this section of it, this long thin stretch here. I'm thinking a fitting name for this area would be Tuco. So I've just moved this high-rise here to a more central location, and here we are going to have, well, we're gonna have nothing, I think. This is just an empty lot here in downtown. I think our skyline has turned out quite nice, at least under the circumstances of what we're trying to create. Did a bit of residential expansion over here, as well as a single developer suburban subdivision where every single house looks the same. Of course, a cool aspect of the game is that they have different props. That's a feature I really do like in City Skylines 2. A feature I don't like is that the developers decided that, you know, people don't actually have trees in their gardens or backyards. They just have small, well-manicured bushes. So I spent 20 minutes, I think, adding trees to lots of gardens with the Anarchy mod just to make my suburbs look a little more tree or bushy, whatever you want to call it. It provides a great effect, but it's so time consuming, and just annoying that I have to do that, but yeah, oh well. Oh, and speaking of time consuming, I know that for the first, you know, video of Heisenberg, I removed the super green grass of every single building in the very end in the episode. I'm not gonna do that this time around. There's a couple of thousand buildings here, so that's not gonna happen. And I think with that said, we kinda achieved what we set out to achieve. If anything, I at least learned some new techniques and kind of some new tooling for building a different type of downtown this time around, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out with our interstate cutting through a neighborhood as well as the low wealth area of Tuco, which you know, in game is actually a wealthy, happy area. But yeah, so I'd love to hear some suggestions for what we could name some of the many districts here in Heisenberg. I'm thinking Breaking Bad references is probably the way to go, but I'm looking forward to if you guys can find something clever other than just Tuco, which isn't all that clever. Anyways, suggestions for future builds as well are very much appreciated. I love trying things out and trying to, you know, push the boundaries of what's achievable in Cities Skylines 2 in its current iteration, so always looking out for that. But thank you all so much for watching. I'll shoot some cinematics for you guys now, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.